Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to create VPC Gateway Endpoint. What is the VPC Endpoint? So VPC Endpoint allow customer to communicate with other AWS services privately. That means if any AWS service like EC2 wants to communicate with other AWS service like S3, so VPC Endpoint allow that communication privately. Okay, so let me demonstrate using one practical, then you can understand. So before going to that, we have to know what is the VPC gateway types. So VPC endpoints are two types. One is gateway endpoint. We can create this gateway for only S3 service and DynamoDB. For these two services only, we can create gateway endpoint. This is the free of cost, okay? This is the free service. Though there is no charge for this for creating VPC gateway, okay? Free service. The second one is interface gateway endpoint. The second one is interface endpoint. So this is going to support all AWS services, okay? Supported AWS services. This is the hourly based cost. So this is going to charge hourly based, okay? So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create VPC gateway endpoint. So this I'm going to demonstrate using one example, okay? And then we can see the practical. So this is the AWS environment. So name it is AWS Cloud. In this AWS Cloud, I'm going to create one VPC. I'm going to name it as prod VPC. You can name anything. I'm going to call as prod VPC with the CIDR value 10.0.0/16. Here I'm going to create one public subnet. I'm going to name as public subnet with the CIDR value. Okay. And I'm going to create one private VPC. Sorry, private subnet. And the CIDR value for this one 2.0/24. Okay. You can give any name for this one. So in this, I would require one private route table. So in the public subnet, I'm going to create public route table. This is the route I'm going to create for this subnet. This is the public subnet, public route table. I'm going to name it as public route table. Okay. And this private route table. Okay. So here I'm going to create one EC2 in the public subnet. In the private subnet also, I'm going to launch one EC2 mission. Okay. So in the AWS cloud, I want to communicate with the S3 service. This is within the AWS cloud only. Okay. Let me name it as S3. So for example, my private mission wants to, this is my private mission wants to communicate this S3. So then it would require either NAT gateway or internet gateway, right? Using public access only we can able to communicate. But I don't want to communicate using public. Let me delete this. To communicate, suppose I want to communicate using private communication. Then VPC endpoint will place the VPC endpoint allow this private communication. For that, I'm going to create VPC Gateway Endpoint. Okay. So let me create one internet gateway also for this VPC. This is the internet gateway I'm going to create. To allow the private communication, I have to create one VPC endpoint. This is the VPC endpoint. Okay. VPC endpoint. I will show you each and every step. Then you can get the clear idea. So in this case, my EC2 machine going to connect this S3 using this VPC endpoint privately and will communicate with S3 service. Okay. To allow EC2 machine to communicate this S3, I have to create one IAM role which will provision EC2 have access to S3 service. For that, I have to create one IAM role also. I will show you each and everything. First, let me explain this one. So here I am going to create one VPC. So called production VPC with the CADR 10.0.0.0/16. And in this VPC, I'm going to create, here I'm going to create one public subnet. The CADR value for this one is this one. And I want to create one private subnet. And the CADR value for this one is this 2.0. Second, I'm going to create one internet gateway. And attach it to production VPC. Okay. Third, have to launch two EC2 machines. Fourth, I'm going to create IAM role from EC2 S3 access. Let me show you through this practically, then you will get idea. So let me go back to the AWS console. So here I'm in Ireland region. So here I'm going to go to the VPC dashboard. So here I'm going to create one VPC. Okay. For this I'm going to click on create VPC. So here I'm going to name the production VPC. So scroll down. So after that, I'm going to enable the DNS resolution settings. For that, go to Actions and edit VPC settings and enable DNS host names. Just save this. Close. After that, I'm going to create two subnets. For that, I'm going to subnet section and create the subnets. So here you have to select the production VPC. Within the production VPC only, have to create the subnets. I'm going to create the public subnet. I'm going to name it as public subnet. And here I'm going to select the EU West 1A zone. After that, I'm going to give the CADR value for this. So click on create subnet. For this, select the public subnet and go to actions and edit subnet settings. Here you have to select auto assign public IPv4 address. This will going to give the one public IP address to the EC2 machine. Let's save this. Now we have to create the pub private subnet. So select the production VPC and going to name as private subnet. So here you can select any zone. So for this you have to enter the CADR value and scroll down and create subnets. So for this subnet I'm not going to enable the auto enable IPv4 public address settings. So after that I'm going to create one internet gateway. So VPC endpoint gateway. You can give any name. Here I'm going to give this int. After that go to internet gateway section. Select this VPC internet gateway and attach it to our production VPC. Just go to actions. Here you have to see attach it to VPC. Here you have to select the production VPC and attach internet gateway. That means we are attaching this internet gateway to our subnet. So here I'm going to create the route table now. Under the route table section, we have to create route table. So first I'm going to create the public route and for this production VPC and create route table. Okay. Once you create the route table, just select the route table and go to the properties and go to the subnet association section. Here you have to click on edit subnet association and add the public subnet. That means you are going to provide the internet access to this public subnet. Okay. Once you subnet association completed, then go to route section. Here you have to add the internet route. Okay. Just click on add route table and select this route. And this has to go through internet gateway. For this, you have to select internet gateway section and select the internet gateway ID. Let's save this. Now I'm going to create one more route table for that private route table. So here I'm going to name it as private route table and attach it to the production VPC and create route table. For this private route table section, I'm going to attach private subnet. For this, go to subnet association, edit subnet association and select private subnet and save association. Okay. Here I'm not going to enter any routes because AWS network already defined the local routes. Okay. Now let me launch the EC2 missions on these two. So for that go to EC2 service. In the EC2 dashboard you have to launch instance. So here I'm going to name the EC2 mission as public VM. You can give any name. Here I'm going to select the Amazon Linux operating system and scroll down. So here I'm selecting the T2 micro. So for this key pair you have to select any key. So here I'm having one key. I'm selecting that one. In the network section you have to select the VPC. So just scroll down this one and select the production VPC. After that, you have to select either public or private. First, I'm creating the VM in public subnet. So for this, you have to select auto assign public IP. So after that, you have to create one security group to allow port number 22. That too, and port number 22 allow us to connect to the EC2 machine, Linux EC2 machine. Okay, allow port number 22. See, this is the port SSH. That is the port number 22. By default, it will gives us, and after that, click on launch instance. Now I created public EC2 machine, and the same way I'm going to create one private instance also. Create. Here I'm going to create the private VM. The same I'm going to select the Amazon Linux. So T2 micro, here I'm going to create the selecting the key as well. After that I'm going to select the VPC and private subnet. So here you have to select the production VPC. Here you have to select the private subnet. Okay. So here I'm not able to enable this public IP. So here you have to select the existing security group. So already allowed this port number 22 and launch instance. So the EC2 missions are launching now. Meanwhile, I am going to create the IAM role. For that, we have to go to the S3 service. To allow our EC2 mission to communicate S3, you have to create one IAM role. Sorry, not S3. Okay, let me see the buckets, available buckets. And now I'm going to create the IAM role for this. So here in the IAM dashboard, we have to create role. So under the IAM dashboard section, click on the role and select create role. So you are going to select the AWS service. Here you have to select which service you want to create. For this I am selecting S3 and scroll down next, click on next. So here you have to select the S3 access. When you type the S3 service, it is going to give list of available permissions. Here I am selecting the S3 full access. Click on next. So here I have to give the role name S3 EC2 S3. That means we are provisioning the access to EC2 to S3. Just scroll down and create role. So I already created this role. Okay, hence I am cancelling this role. So if I go to my role section, see this is the EC2 S3 role I already created. Okay, now I am closing this IAM section. So these are the available buckets here. So you have to access these buckets using private link. I will show you in the practically. Let me create the next one. So let's see EC2 missions, whether launched or not. Now still my public mission is not in slicing stage only. For this public VM, we can see one public IP address. For this private VM, there is no public IP address, right? So let me connect to this public VM first. For this, we would require one putty software. Okay, let me open my putty. And here you have to give the PEM key. In the authorization section, you have to select PEM key. I have this PEM and go to this section. EC2-user is already created by the AWS. So here I'm going to select the public IP. See, now I connected to this public mission. So this is the 1.94. This is the IP address. Let me confirm. See, this is the 194. This is the public IP. Now I'm going to connect to this private mission. But there is no public IP to connect from my home or office. For that, I would like to connect this mission to using public mission. I'm going to connect this private mission. For that, I need the PEM key. Okay, PEM key is used to connect Linux host. Let me copy this PEM key content into the public mission. You can give as name any name. Okay, I'm going to give the only I'm going to give only read only access to this public key. For that, I'm going to use 400. That means read access this public key. Using this public key, I am now able to connect then my private machine using SSH. So we have to use this public key. So the user is EC2-user at the rate. So now we have to enter the private IP. Okay. Okay, let's see. It is asking for the you have to enter S. Now see, now we are able to connect the private mission from the public mission. This is the public mission. This is connected from my home and this mission to this private mission I connected, right? See, this is the 1.2.42. 2.42 is the private IP. Now I am going to check where I am able to access my AWS buckets or not. See, unable to locate the credentials. That means we have to add the IAM role for this EC2 mission. For that, we have to go to Action section under Security, modify IAM role. Now, here you have to attach the EC2-S3 role. Okay. So now we are provision the EC2 to have access to S3. Now let's go to our EC2 mission and check again. See, still you don't have access to S3. That means you have access but not able to communicate with the S3. For that, what you have to do is you have to create one VPC endpoint. For that, you have to go to VPC dashboard. Under VPC service, you have to check this VPC. In the left hand side, you have to scroll down and here you can see endpoint. Just click on endpoint. So here on once you come to this endpoint service section, you have to create endpoint. Okay, now here to name as any name you can give. So here I'm going to give endpoint gateway service. Okay. So here you can select the AWS service and scroll down. So here you are going to provision the S3, right? Then you have to select the S3. Once you select this one, S3, here it is going to show two types of interfaces. One is interface endpoint and one is gateway endpoint. Here I'm going to show you gateway endpoint only. That's why you have to select gateway endpoint and scroll down. So you are going to create the production VPC. So here you have to select the production VPC and scroll down and you also select the route table. For which route table you have to select? Private route table. If you see, this is the private route table. This section has to communicate through S3 service, right? That's the reason here you have to select private route table. So here you have to select private route table while creating VPC Gateway Endpoint. Okay. So now I'm going to select the private route table. This private route table associated with the private subnet. That's why. Scroll down. So I'm not going to touch any default values. So after that you have to hit and create endpoint. So let's see. So now the status is available. Now you can check this. See, now I'm able to get the AWS buckets. These are the buckets. See, go for AWS Cloud9. Let me go to the S3 service. So these are my buckets. I have three buckets and then now I am able to get three buckets. This is how you have to create VPC and APC endpoint or VPC gateway endpoint. Thank you. Thank you for watching.